Hi you guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thanks for checking in and stopping in. If you haven't watched the first two videos around permaculture gardening as well as organics and soil biology, things like that, I recommend that you watch those videos first. Now we're going to start moving into plant placement. I'm going to be planting out my garlic. It is fall time in my area. This is zone 6 and I am in the northern part of the country here in the United States. So I plant hardneck varieties and soft neck varieties, and I do them in the fall so they have a nice cold period in the winter time for them to go through the processes that they have to go through so that the next year they're actually bulbing up for us. So I'm super excited for that. So plant placement. First, we have to understand climate. So I'm sure you remember in school in like 4th grade when they explain what climate is. We know that it's things like weather, annual rainfall, and amount of direct sunlight, and all of these things are all working into climate. So I'm sure in whatever area you're in that you have a pretty good understanding of the overall climate. You know roughly when winter starts, when you get your first frost, you know roughly what months of the year you get the most rain, etc. But we have to start looking much smaller when we're talking a garden. We have to start thinking microclimates. So for instance, right now we're standing in my backyard. This is a south-facing backyard, so it's afternoon. It is now about 12:30 p.m., which is why I wanted to come out during this time. It's inconvenient for me because of lighting, but I really needed you guys to see this. So this is afternoon, and you'll notice that this is all in shade, but that is all in full sun. So this is microclimates. So do you have a wall? Do you have a fence? Do you have a garage? In my case is right here. Do you have a neighboring fence back there? Do you have taller plants that are going to be in front of it shading it out? Also, how much moisture do you have? So yes, you got a pretty good gauge of how much rainfall or how much water you've put on using sprinklers, etc. But how much of it is retained due to microclimates? So for instance, in that bed, let me just angle you around so I'm not just pointing aimlessly at things you can't see. So in that bed over there, it is notoriously always dry because out of the entirety of my garden beds, it's the one that actually sees the most sun. Also, notice it happens to have that ugly awning that I will eventually be getting rid of course, but it has that little awning over the top of it, which prevents most rainfall from even being able to get to it. So it is completely dependent on me for its water. So a microclimate, if you can kind of like think in your brain, sunlight, moisture, wind, snowfall. Okay, so you need to know those things. If you have an area like that you get whipped with a lot of wind, you don't want to be putting tall things there unless you're going to give them a decent amount of support, like staking, things like that. So consider each individual climate, which is why when you're starting a garden, I highly recommend you don't do the whole thing all at once in one season. You should start small and work your way up. Build one bed and have that bed be the one that you spend the most focus on. You just try to tune in that one bed, and you will learn so much about that one little area on your property. You will learn about how much sunlight it gets. You will learn about its water retention, and how well things grow there will depend on variety. It'll depend on you. So many factors. So I always say, like, start small, so that way you don't get overwhelmed and just throw the whole thing out. Because if you plant a whole big garden for the first time without having grown things there or grown to the magnitude that you're trying to do before, you're probably setting yourself up to see a lot of failure, which you're going to learn from, of course, but that can be really disheartening and kind of make you maybe just stop the whole thing altogether. You're like, oh, I'm done with gardening. I don't have a green thumb. I'm gonna say this right now. I'm going to be the first one to say it. I hate that term green thumb because in my opinion, there is no such thing as a person with a green thumb. Nobody is just naturally good at this stuff. There are people that learned. That's what there are. People that educated themselves, either because they had family members that were established gardeners that taught them from a young age, so they don't even realize how much information they absorbed before ever even, attempting their own garden, or people like me who just like read a bunch of books and watched a ton of blogs and videos and reached out to seasoned gardeners, took some classes online, whatever it is that you got to do. But if it's something you care about, you have to educate yourself about it. So to reiterate again what I said in my last video, permaculture gardening involves using very minimal equipment because you're trying to do as little as possible, honestly, which works out for the planet, works out for your plants, and works out for you. So I have my tools. Oh gosh, you can't see them. I have my tools here. These are my main tools. I have a rake, a shovel, and a hoe. And the hoe has a forked end, which is sometimes helpful when I'm trying to break into this. Was all a rock bed for a very, very long time, almost a decade. So there's a lot of rocks still in the soil that I haven't sifted all the way out. So that forked edge really helps. But anyway, so minimal equipment. So microclimates, that's something to consider. And, wind, rain, snow, and sunlight. Those things are super important when deciding when and where you're going to plant things out. Now, on the back of seed packets, it will have a little picture of a map, usually of the United States, because it's being sold here in the United States. But if you lived overseas and you were buying seed packets from the US and you look at the back and you're like, this isn't helpful, you can go to your farmer's almanac, and almost every country has their own version of it. Just do some research. You can find your version of it, and it's going to tell you when is the first expected frost date, when is the last expected frost date, and this kind of information that will help you decide what you want to do. So there's no real easy way. I can't say, oh, you plant this on August 15th, because it's going to depend on you, your climate, and your microclimates. Okay, so I have got some garlic. I thought that would be a really fun first plant kind of endeavor for us, because I feel like garlic is used by so many people, whether it's dried in garlic salt, that you sprinkle on your steaks before you slap them on the fryer, or on the barbecue, I should say, fryer. Or it's just something that you use to flavor your roast before you throw it in the oven. There are so many things. These are also great mild antiseptics. Not extremely effective like they might try to convince you of, but effective enough to where in a survival situation, if you have a really gnarly toothache, an infection in your tooth, you could munch this up into pulp basically, and then make a little pad with it and just put it right on the tooth. It's gonna hurt like a mother for a second or two, but then you're gonna start feeling relief as it kills the bacteria that's actually causing the toothache, right? So also making teas and stuff out of this to help aid with recovery from illnesses, your colds and flus, etc. There's a lot of old wives' tales about the use of garlic medicinally. So not only is it delicious, not only is it delicious for your food, but it's also good for your body, good antioxidant. So garlic needs a cold period. So if you live in a really warm environment where you don't really get winters that get into the freezings, or preferably even 10-15 degrees, preferably below freezing, then you're going to want to do a cold period in your refrigerator. So take your garlic, throw it in a paper bag, and then put that paper bag in the crisper drawer in your refrigerator for, I would say, about 6 to 10 weeks, minimum of 6 weeks, and probably no longer than about 10-ish weeks, okay? And then you can plant them out as well. And I think that in my area, the best time to plant these out is in fall. I feel like a lot of people make the mistake planting it in the springtime. You're just not gonna get the bulbs. They need that extra time. They need that time over winter to really root in, settle in, go their full dormancy and then kick off right off the bat in the spring. Garlic takes a long time to grow, and I won't be harvesting until like July, probably July, maybe even like late July. So it's gonna take 8 or 9 months for this to grow. So keep that in mind when you're doing your planting, because you have to be 8 or 9 months ahead. What do you want to plant there 8 or 9 months from now? Is the garlic going to be in the way? So I'm going to get working on this, and I will come back with you when I have, you know, like some trenches dug, and we'll start talking like how you're going to plant them, etc. Okay, so we'll be right back. Okay, you guys, I've got a pretty decent trench dug here that I'm liking the look of, so let's talk garlic for a second. Now, there are 2 main types of garlic. There's also a third type, but we're just going to focus on the 2 main types. There are hard neck and soft neck. Now, I'm kicking myself because I didn't think about the video before I separated all of the hard garlic out. I wanted to keep 1 bulb of each so I could show you, but I can show you the soft neck one. So the neck, so this is the root area where the roots used to be, right? And this was the clove that, you know, some farmer harvested. And then right up out of here was the stalk or the scapes. They came up and out of here. Now this is what's called the neck. So scapes coming up out of here, neck right here. If I can very clearly bend it and have like some give, that's a soft neck. If this, when I go to bend it, it really doesn't have any give, it almost wants to just snap off, that's a hard neck variety. Now the difference between the 2, flavor wise, is the hard neck varieties tend to be a little bit more potent in flavor, and I think that they usually give me the largest individual bulbs. The soft neck variety will still have a really nice garlicky flavor, but it'll give you like more bulbs, but they'll usually be smaller. I think the both varieties are great. I don't think you can go wrong either way. Figure out which one's better for your area, because I know, again, depending on whether or not you have that cold period, whether or not you're looking to throw things in your refrigerator for months, especially enough garlic to actually be worth planting, whatever. So I've got this trench dug, and it is about 6 inches deep. I'm not going to quite put them in that low, but I wanted to backfill with some of this compost that I pulled out of the bottom there. It smells so good. That's how you know that the compost is ready, is when it smells delicious, just smells fresh and earthy like the forest floor. When I put my garlic in, the eye point at the base here, this is where the new roots were formed. The pointy part at the top is where our new stalks will come out of. So when planting, I'm going to plant root side down, pointy side up, and I'm going to water it in really well. Other than that, I'm not going to water too heavily because we're coming into fall. I tend to get a lot of rainfall, and I don't want this to rot. It doesn't want to sit in water, but it does want pretty consistently moist conditions. In my area, because we get pretty darn cold in the winter, sometimes down to minus 10, minus 15. I don't want to plant these too close to the surface because then they're gonna get like frostbitten, and you know, they need to be protected in the soil. So I'm gonna bury these about 4 to 5 inches deep. If you live in warmer climates after your refrigeration period, go ahead and just bury yours 2 inches, maybe 3 inches deep, because the deeper that you plant them, the more effort it takes later for the bulb to get pushed back up to the surface. The plant actually has to use energy to make that happen. So for me, like there's no way around it. I have to plant it deep or I won't make it through the winter. For you, if you have a much milder winter or almost no winter, then you don't have to plant it very deep. Give it that cold period in your fridge, plant it out 2 to 3 inches deep. And I'm gonna separate them by about 6 inches. So I have it pretty close to 6 inches, no, probably 4 inches or so back from here, which is plenty of space. But I want to make sure that each individual bulb is about 6 inches from the bulb next to it. They don't like to compete for space. So here I'm going to plant the soft neck variety. A little bit more compost. There we go. And also with the bulbs, save the largest bulbs. Go ahead and use the little ones. Like, I don't think this one should have ended up in there, but go ahead and use the little ones for just garlic as you normally would, and keep the biggest bulbs for planting. Okay, now let's show you what we have here. So we have got 4 garlic planted, and this will eventually be 4 bulbs. Oh, by the way, I saw these and I had to like show you. So in one of the first videos, the very first video, I explained how this system is called the 3 sisters. Oh, I just dropped that. And these guys are pole beans and beans. Most bean varieties, maybe even all of them, I'm not sure on that, but I know that most of them, they end up collecting nitrogen and form it into little nodules on their roots that are right up here closer. So they kind of like mined it from all over, and they condensed it into these little balls and put it right up on their roots. Now, after these guys are done, I've harvested everything from them, I'm going to leave these roots in place. They're really stringy and small and fibrous, so the organisms in here will have no problem breaking these down for like before springtime, in a way that like my new roots aren't gonna like struggle to get through here because of these. And what'll happen is they'll break down this nitrogen, and it'll be ready right here at the surface level for my next corn seedlings, and corn utilizes a lot of nitrogen. So, and a lot of things honestly do. So it's just like a great little thing to know. You can also throw these in your compost bin if you want. But yeah, I'm just gonna like keep these right in there where they belong, and they'll get broken down by the organisms, and yeah, keep the cycle flowing. But yeah, so we've got them buried in here. They're about 4.5 inches deep. And then just backfill like so. I don't soak the holes. Some people also do pre-soaking before this. I just find that it makes that papery substance like fall apart faster, which isn't super helpful to the plant. So go ahead and let it do it more naturally, and I think that you'll have a better result. This poor little cabbage never stood a chance this year. I'm gonna let it try though. Anyways, so that is essentially how to do garlic. I'm going to repeat that process throughout all the different areas in my garden that I would like to have garlic. And again, never doing it all in one area, though garlic actually happens to be one of those special things. Excuse me, I'm recovering from a cold. Happens to be one of those special things that has developed that garlicky flavor specifically because nothing wants to eat it except for us crazy people. So it doesn't really succumb to pests, but again, the garlic scent kind of helps hide the scents of other things around it. So then it kind of becomes a pest deterrent. Mild, not extremely effective, but mildly effective. So by planting them in little pockets strategically, like throughout the garden, I'm just gonna, increase the biodiversity and decrease the chances that some pests are gonna find delicious things around it. I don't know how effective that's actually gonna be, but we do what we can, anything that we can. Okay, so I'm going to plant out the rest of this garlic. Thanks again for checking in. This was just one more little step on our way to preparedness and being self-sustaining. And real quick, before we conclude this, can we just like appreciate this gloriousness here? Like, OMG. This makes me so happy. That gorgeous, gorgeous sunflower. These beautiful cosmos, more cosmos behind me, golden vicary bush right there. Oh, so many pretty colors and things going on right now. These cute little, of course the sun kind of sucks, but these cute little pumpkins. Oh, just everything about it. It's making me so freaking happy.